Spray painting the hubs of the powered wheels has been on my to-do list for about 2 years now. It hasn't been a high priority until recently, when my replacement power wheelchair required constant maintenance, and I sent it back. I decided to completely restore my power wheelchair. In the description of this video is the link to the playlist for videos I'm making as I do the restoration work. The manufacturing paint lasted for around 3 years on the hubcaps. It initially started chipping when the tire was being removed to replace punctured inner tubes. Around year 4 is when it started flaking off when being rubbed. Wheelchairs are thought to have a 5-year use and then considered worn out because of extreme cost of maintenance. When I signed the application form for my replacement wheelchair, I didn't know how to perform the maintenance. I believed them when they told me the wheelchair was worn out. After receiving a very poor power wheelchair requiring constant maintenance, I started learning how to do the work myself and found that this wheelchair was easily restored for under $100, and then the rest of the maintenance to the wheelchair was normal wear and tear. Here's the scoop. If you're constantly driving your power wheelchair into walls, store shelving, curbs, and other solid objects, you're going to bend the frame and wear it out. This happened very few times with me. I have good control of the wheelchair. Thus, the wheelchair is able to continue to be used. You can protect bolts from rusting by using a removable thread locking fluid. If you apply this to a new wheelchair, it will make the maintenance so much easier. Since I didn't know this when I received this wheelchair, I've been using a 2.5 inch, 2-foot long steel pipe fit over top of the bolts to add torque and break the seal rust formed. Where I purchased this from was the plumbing section of a big box home repair store. It is traditionally used for natural gas piping. Wheelchairs use as many Allen key bolts as possible. If a bolt head has started to lose its shape and the correct size Allen key won't fit into the bolt, you could use a hammer and correct the size Allen key it fits. To do this, line up the correct size Allen key with the bolt head, then tap it with the hammer to force the correct shape in the bolt head. Now that I've gone through some general tips that will help in the removal of the tires, let's get into the steps I took to repaint my hubcaps. I purchased this heavy-duty paint stripper. There are environmentally friendly paint strippers. I chose this heavy-duty version because the manufacturer coating feels like a baked-on plastic rather than paint. I felt the stronger paint stripper was necessary to get down to the bare metal, similar to the idea of removing 10 or more coats of paint. The steps to use paint stripper are on the packaging. This was my first time using a paint stripper product. I asked the store employee to go over these steps with me to ensure I knew how to use it correctly. And I would encourage you to do the same if this is your first time using paint stripper on metal. I used several tools in addition to the paint stripper. Disposable gloves to protect myself from chemicals absorbing into my body through my skin, 100 grit sandpaper and a sanding block to remove specks of paint the paint stripper left behind, heavy-duty copper wool to remove flaking pieces of the manufacturing paint on the hubcap, a foam brush to apply the paint stripper, and an aluminum tray to hold the paint stripper I was using for this job, a trowel to scrape the paint off after paint stripper penetrated the remaining manufacturer paint, and since I was working outside, a cardboard box to contain the flakes as they came off the hubcap from the manufacturing paint. To clean off the hubcap paint after paint was scraped off, I used alcohol swabs. Even though I used several tools to remove the manufacturer paint, the actual process was very easy. I don't want this list to scare you. You could think of it this way. The paint stripper did the hard work loosening the old paint. All I need to do was get it off the hubcap, similar to washing dirt off of one's hands. The amount of time it will take for you to get paint stripper to loosen paint will depend on which paint stripper product you choose. Read the label to find out how long it needs to work. My product required 20 minutes. When the paint stripper was removed, this is what my hubcap looked like. I had to accommodate painting to the needs of my physical disability. I used my picnic table with newspaper on top. I had to weigh down the newspaper so it wouldn't move if there was a breeze. I've been bit before by not doing this. I've had newspaper touch what I've just painted and ruin my paint job. Spray painting primer was straightforward. This was going onto bare metal. I had to choose the correct primer for the type of metal my wheelchair hubcap is made out of. Specifically, there is galvanized primer and non-galvanized metal primer. I've skipped using primer in the past. I did this to save money. It came back to haunt me because the paint job didn't last. If you knew me in real life, you would know I'm not a materialistic person. I care about doing a good job, but I don't base my identity around my possessions. So the reason why I was painting my hubcap is solely to protect the metal. It's structural. It's bolted directly to one of the wheelchair motors. I can't afford to have the metal deteriorate from the sand and grit on sidewalks in the street, becoming abrasive to it. I also don't want the Canadian weather, extreme heat, cold, rain, and snow, to deteriorate the metal like it does with vehicles in this country. I would rather have the paint take the punishment than the metal. This is a look at the hubcap after the primer was applied. All that matters to me is that the primer is applied to the metal. I'm not looking for a finished or polished look with the primer. The spray paint product I chose for my wheelchair hubcap is oil-based. There are differences than other spray paint products. One key difference is the amount of time it takes for the paint to cure. One key consideration in what paint to use is how you will manage your mobility while the wheelchair is being worked on. The actual process of spray painting the hubcap was simple and straightforward. The hubcap needs to be raised up by a block of wood so it's easy to paint the sides, and depending on the design of your hubcap, rotating it to make it easiest painting the inside parts. You don't want to touch the metal while the paint's curing, otherwise you're going to detract from the quality of the paint job. You don't want to spray paint on a day that is windy. Also, you might want to wear a face mask to protect yourself from the fumes. You definitely want to spray paint where it is well ventilated. I used 3 light coats of paint. I waited 15 minutes between each coat of paint. It took all 3 coats of paint to make the paint look even. If you are new to spray painting, I want to give you some advice. If you apply too much paint, you could always use the paint stripper and start over again. I'm saying this to help you put your mind at ease. I find this type of work really rewarding, and I'd like you to come to enjoy this as much as I do. After I had the 3 coats of blue paint applied, I had to go to bed. I had reached the limits of my physical disability. The paint began to cure. I still needed to apply the clear coat to protect the paint, so based on the manufacturing guidelines, I was in the time frame when no paint should be applied for 2 days. This isn't practical since I need my wheelchair. What I did was place the hubcap on a piece of wood in my kitchen oven at 170 Fahrenheit for 4 hours to speed up the paint curing. This is the clear coat paint I purchased. I've recently been watching various automotive repair videos. I see the value of applying clear coat paint. It really does protect the paint job, that is the blue paint I've used. I realize this means spending more money. I believe you're getting good value for your money when you use clear coat paint. I let the hubcap cool down to room temperature before I continued. Then I applied a 4th light coat of blue paint. I did this for extra insurance because of using the kitchen oven to cure the paint. I have done my research about using heat to cure paint. I don't believe the heat I applied compromised the paint quality. It's just that with how much I depend on my power wheelchair, I felt this was prudent. Then I applied 3 light coats of clear coat paint to the hub. I waited about 15 minutes between coats. The reason I used 3 light coats was due to the shape of my hubcap. I didn't want to put the paint on too heavy and cause it to bubble. When I was applying the clear coat and there was a bit of a rhyme to it, spray some clear coat and then rotate the hub and repeat several times. I had the hubcap sitting on a block of wood so I could rotate it without touching the hubcap. After the final coat, I waited 15 minutes, then I brought the hubcap back to my kitchen oven and baked it again at 170 Fahrenheit for about 4 hours. There were a few key reasons why I did this and not go directly onto the wheelchair. I didn't want to put it back onto my wheelchair and have the dust be stirred up as I used the wheelchair around my home and the paint was drying. I wanted to give the clear coat paint around the bolt holes some time to dry. And finally, the design of my wheelchair uses an inside hubcap you don't see to support the tread. The outside hubcap that's visible and the inside bolt together. I didn't want to paint the hubcap parts together and prevent me from changing flat inner tubes in the future. This is a look at the hubcap after it was reinstalled on my wheelchair. I'm very pleased with the results. It's not showing in this video how to remove and reinstall the tire on the wheelchair. It is an intuitive process. However, I do want to mention I use the same tool as is used with bikes to remove the tread from the hubcap. You could go old school and use a few butter knives, whatever works for you. Started this in an evening and finished the next day. I did this to lessen the impact on when I would need my power wheelchair to leave my home. I have a backup wheelchair, so you'll need to plan when you can do this to manage your mobility. Your disability may prevent you from removing the tire from the wheelchair, but you could do the painting yourself. If this is what you need, I encourage you to ask for help. You'll feel very rewarded each time you use the wheelchair seeing the paint job, and besides, it is fun doing things with other people. Ask questions. I found the store employees who staff the paint department to be knowledgeable. There are times when these employees are on their breaks. I've also detected big stores staffing according to the forecasted customer traffic. If you're needing help, it may benefit you to shop during daytime hours. This may mean waiting for help while other customers are being served, because paint is a very high manpower related job on account of the tinting before a customer takes it to the cash register for purchase. .100 grit sandpaper and a sanding block, alcohol swab, disposable gloves, heavy duty copper wool, paint stripper, a foam brush, aluminum tray, trim clad clear, trim clad gloss dark blue, trim clad primer, a trowel and cardboard box. Thank you for this time you've spent with me. I've enjoyed making this video for you. Bye for now.